use his real name
Oh,
because.
he's Mr. John Smith tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's great. He went on and on and on. He is just so funny, and he's a really good guy without a doubt.
Oh yeah, he's a big heart, an experiencer and a scientist, and it's sort of a rare mix.
Yeah, well, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and start talking about him since we're already on the subject about him. So, John Smith, how did he? Well, how did he come to you in the first place?
Well, Connie, like so many other people these days, I've been doing this for such a long time, and I've done 15 surgeries prior to the last one we just did this weekend, which would be number 16. My name has sort of gotten out of there all over the world on the internet and so on. And with that much exposure, I have a lot of contacts. Now, John had injured his toe, he thought, because he was having some pain. And actually, he came to my office for two reasons, with me not knowing that he was an abductee. He complained of pain in the toe, and I palpated the area. I didn't see any kind of a scar or wound, so I thought it might be something internal, and I took an x-ray, and we found the metallic rod in the toe. When I approached him with the results of this, then he started telling me the whole story.
So he just went right to your office and just said, hey.
Yeah, he came in actually as a foot patient, and that's what I thought he was. And then, as I said...
he knew what he was getting into. He knew where he was
sure.
going.
Then he told me that he knew who I was, and that's why he had come to me in the first place, and that I happened to be geographically in the right area, very close to where he worked and so on. And
absolutely perfect.
So he was a little afraid to say anything at first. He didn't know what my reaction was going to be, so he just kind of waited until the results of the x-ray, and when I showed him, he said, well, I thought so.
Excellent.
Now you're the doctor who, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
there we went.
Well, what's wonderful about John, I met him before at one of the crash retrieval conferences, and he starts talking to me and telling me what his story was about. So when I actually saw this air on the show Alien Intent, I guess that was A&E or Discovery that was on.
That was the Biography channel, which is owned by A&E.
Okay. So when I saw that, and I'm like, there he is. I know that he wants to be private about this. Why do some of these people want to be private and then others want to tell all? And by the way, this is not some guy that just came off the street and wants to get 15 minutes of fame. He's being very private. He also is what? He's a biologist?
Well, he has a degree in metallurgical science, and he's one of the few people on the face of the planet that's an expert in nanotechnology. So he's in a very subfield of metallurgical science. And he also, by virtue of the fact that he got to where he is pretty good when it comes to biological tissue also.
So, okay, let's see. I'm an alien, and I want people to know about me one day, or I want to, well, actually, kind of that's what John's story is when it comes to the implant. What he had told me was the one that was in his toe, because I believe he's got 3 other ones, possibly 3?
Well, we don't know. The only one we've really investigated X-ray-wise was something that was in the toe.
Right, and this is all his words. And he said they put it in the toe because they want us to know about it. They want this one to be taken out. That's what I remember him talking to me about. But for him to study nanotechnology and to know that, I mean, that's what the results were, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Now, we had no idea, with John was the 15th case. And, prior to that, we weren't looking for any nanotechnological anything, because it was only maybe 5 or 6 years ago where science, academic science, was talking about the existence of carbon nanotubes and such structures, and most of them were saying that they didn't exist and they couldn't even make them. So while others who are a little farther out there were saying, well, if we could make them, we could do this and we could do that. So, the time came when they were made in a laboratory. They're still not found in nature. And they realized what properties these carbon structures have with tremendous strength. The space elevator, for example, that was being talked about, that was based on using carbon fibers and carbon strands, carbon nanotubes put together. Is that tremendous strength, and they could build a tower into space, launch a vehicle off of it, and they would save the cost of having to defeat gravity. And then the Japanese were talking about weaving carbon nanofibers into clothing, and you could control the color or the pattern, or keep somebody warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
Oh,
So
wow.
it has a tremendous applications if it were put to good civilian use, which I hope it is. So now it's expected, but to find them in an object that came out of the human body, I mean, that is absolutely sensational. And of course, we found other things too that we weren't looking for before. Now we have to go back to what we have left of the other ones and start looking at the other ones for these carbon structures.
Ooh. Now, when you pulled it out of John Smith that we're talking about right now, did you what did you find? What was everything that you did find?
Well, in the first place, John's object was a little metallic rod, and it was a little bit different than some of the other ones. I did have a couple of metallic rods, but this one came apart in pieces the minute we started to put an instrument on it and take it out. And we use an instrument called a C-arm, which gives us a visual view of what's going on inside the wound. It's like an X-ray, which we can activate, take a still picture, or have it move. So when we got down to the very last piece, we went in to get it, and it was gone. And we sat there in shock because we did not remove it. It was just gone.
And you had pictures of it. You had proof that it was there.
Oh yeah, we had proof that it was there. But the last piece, when we went together to get it, it just totally disappeared. And we used the C-arm, the X-ray, looking for it, and it just was not there. But we did not remove it. So we had the other parts of it, which I carefully put into the specimen container in the patient's blood serum, which we keep it in, and then something unexpected happened within the next 40 hours. That was also quite mind-boggling.
And the unexpected was?
Well,
we want to know
I
what that
take
is.
these out from the refrigerator
Yeah.
once in a while to see what they look like. So after 48 hours is when I do the first inspection. And I noticed, first of all, that the pieces, the metallic pieces that we had removed and segmentally put into the solution, had turned dark. And I thought, well, maybe there's an oxidation process going on because, it is being exposed to air and so on. And then when I shook them up in the jar and looked through the bottom, they started to reassemble themselves.
Whoa.
In the form of the original structure. Now, that was quite mind-boggling, and I called the producer of Alien Intent, and I actually had him come down and film it in the jar, and neither one of us knew what was going on. Now, John has some ideas that these were somewhat like the Roswell material, which you could crunch up in the palm of your hand, and then it would go back to its normal shape.
Right, the metallic.
So
yeah.
it could have had some kind of magnetic memory and assembled, back into the original structure again.
Absolutely amazing. I must have missed that part. Now, when it started disintegrating, you didn't see it anymore. What do you think? What could do that?
I'd have to get very technical to offer an explanation, but it could be what we call phase shifting, in which it shifts from a three-dimensional phase into, let's say, a four- or five-dimensional environment. That's one possibility. The other possibility is there may be time distortion involved with the abduction phenomena and or the physical evidence such as implants. So all they would have to do is shift time a fraction of a second, and it would be gone.
Is that anything that we use on our planet ourselves? I mean, what can I relate that to?
Well, basically, it's theoretical at this point only, but more and more theoretical physicists are talking about it in the science field. At one time, we thought of time travel as relatively impossible, the work of science fiction, but now we know that the only stumbling block, it seems, to time travel is the tremendous energy source, which would require to do it. And then I heard a professor talking on Coast to Coast a few weeks ago that said that he had already done it. Now, I don't know whether he was talking about doing it with particles, atoms, or whether it actually used a physical object, but he said that they have already created and solved the problem of energy because the energy was here, and that all they had to do was learn to tap into it. Now, we know something like that's true because of the work that Tesla did. You know, he was very good at energy physics, and he did things that nobody else knew how to do, and still the average scientist doesn't know how to do today.
Well, when you the very last result of John Smith's little piece of material in his body, what did you guys find out as the final results?
Well, we found that it contained certain elements which, for example, the largest, most abundant, we call it, element in the object is iron, but it's not just iron from the Earth. It's meteoric iron. In other words, iron that would come from a meteor or a meteorite. And we can tell that by the nickel-iron ratio. There's a certain nickel-iron ratio with meteoric iron. Meteoric iron also has properties of magnetic structure, which is not found in just regular iron. So let's say you were the manufacturer of this object, you would use magnetic iron derived from a meteorite, or create it in your own sort of laboratory. Now, the next thing we find is that it contains, besides other elements which are quite rare, such as uridium and tritium, and we find that it contained one isotope of uranium, which was U-238, which you don't find laying around in nature. Usually it comes as a package, the various isotopes, and of course we all like U-235 because we know how to make bombs out of it. But besides that, we found other structures, and these were the carbon nanostructures, carbon nanotubes. And as I say, when you put them together, you get carbon nanofibers, and when you put the fibers together, you get carbon nanostrands. And these can act as wiring or other for other purposes also. Besides this, we find that there were some sodium chloride crystals, and these were not ordinary sodium chloride, which sodium chloride is just common, ordinary table salt, right? The crystals that salt makes are randomized crystalline structures. There's no specific form, but we find these crystals that are what we call orthorhombic. In other words, they do have form, and they are rectangular and in regular sizes, from large to quite small. So we might assume, for example, which is a big assumption, that's part of the tuning mechanism of this device, because it does broadcast in the electromagnetic spectrum with certain radio waves. So somebody's listening to something, not that I'm suggesting E.T. would use radio waves, which is absolutely ridiculous, because what highly advanced civilization is going to use a radio wave?
Oh, yeah, heck, radio's like last on the list already in the world, in the media world.
Oh, yeah, that's why...
and that's where we are right now.
Stan Friedman calls SETI a silly effort to investigate,
Oh,
because they've been looking for radio waves for years, and like I said, what advanced civilization would use radio waves. Most probably, we're thinking that they communicate with either a part of the electromagnetic spectrum in light waves or in another part called scalar waves, which can have the capacity to travel faster than the speed of light. So it would indicate that if we are getting radio waves, perhaps somebody else is listening on this marble and not somewhere else. Maybe it's piggybacking some information to those individuals who have liaisons with these other intelligences.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. What do you think they're all about? Is it kind of, like we would do? We would like go find some sort of leopard or something out in the wild that we wanted to learn about, and we would tag that and go check it periodically every year and see what's going on with it and keep it tracked and see where it runs and what it does and how it mates. Is that what is being done with us by a advanced technology, or is it even happening with somebody that maybe a human organization's doing it?
Well, I think you've probably touched on a lot of the different bases, and all you need is the refinements. Number one, do they need a device to track us like we do with a bear? No. We know that DNA has its own signature, and therefore all you need to do is to build some kind of device that could track DNA, and you can tune in on any living thing's DNA anywhere in the universe. So I don't think they're tracking devices, but I do think that they are gathering information, like you say, like we do tag bears and whales and so on, to know what their hibernation habits are, how far they swim, or the salmon goes to Russia and what it does there, and then comes back and can't find its own stream. So we learn different things about eating habits. Now, what I think, and again, I have a right to think, but and to postulate or theorize. But if anybody said Dr. Leir said this and he knows, they're wrong. Don't listen to what I have to say. Go out and check it for yourself. I looked at various aspects of what's going on with the abduction phenomena. I listened to what they have to say very closely because abductees are all over the planet. And it looks like, most abduction, the abduction scenario itself involves the taking of ova and sperm. Well, if you're intelligence and you're fooling around with ova and sperm, then, obviously, what are you doing? You're fooling with somebody's genetics, I would think, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So perhaps the whole human race, Chinese, black, whatever, Caucasian, our DNA is being altered, and that the results of this alteration needed to be kept track of. What's going on, what changes are occurring after the manipulation is done. So therefore, let's tag 15% of the ones that we do this on, and we can tell what's going on. And then the other thing you said is there's some skullduggery going on between humans by themselves or in conjunction with others that are doing this. I think it's a good chance that if there are radio waves coming out, and we've had one of these checked and was called by the FCC on a classified chart, it was considered a deep space communication frequency. So somebody's listening to this information besides ET or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you touched on a lot of different things, and I kind of summarized it up a little.
Good job.
more.
I appreciate that. Well, then sum up this for me, because I have a lot of people ask me this, and I really don't know how to answer it. Because if you're kind of in this field and studying it and researching it, you kind of get into the groove of what I'm about to ask you. Because this is a hard question to answer. People that just haven't gotten into it yet, their first question is, well, then why, if you have all this evidence, then why is it not on the news? This would be the biggest story of all. And it's so hard to tell people there's a brick wall. We can't get it on. They don't listen. But you have mounds of evidence with implants inside people's bodies, with nanotechnology and things. It's made up of things that are not readily available on this planet that you're not going to just walk on top of and it's going to be stuck in your toe?
Well, I think I can answer the entire question quite simply by citing an example. Last year I was in Turkey for several weeks in Istanbul and around that area. I got so tired seeing UFOs, and I never thought I'd ever say this. I came back home, and if one passed over, I probably wouldn't bother looking at it.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
I said that when I was in Turkey, in Istanbul, in 2009, became so tired of looking at UFOs that by the time I got back, if one had flown over my head, I wouldn't even bother to look at it.
You're taking me on that next trip because I want to go. I want to say the same thing one day.
Yeah. Now
I'm going with you.
This goes on all the time in Turkey, and of course there are waves when there's more than other times. But it's covered by all the press. I mean, at the convention center where the conference was that I was attending, there was the TV trucks from all the major television stations, and it goes out from Turkey and it goes out to Europe and other Muslim countries. Do we see it in the United States?
No.
No. Go to Brazil. Brazil is one of the few places on the planet where you can pick up a tourist book on Brazil. It tells you where to go see UFOs. So does all the UFO sightings, do all the landings, do all the news about farmers in the field or in the Amazon, watching people get out of their craft and mull around and take specimens, or integrate with them, try and kidnap them, abduct them, or whatever you want to say. Does that news ever get into the news in the United States?
No.
No. So what conclusion can you draw?
That's about the conclusion I can draw there.
Yeah.
That silent meditation.
It's obvious that someone doesn't want the American population to know anything about this stuff.
Yeah, is it us? I mean, because it is readily available everywhere else. All the other countries, everybody talks about this.
Sure. Now we have, the internet. And there's, look on YouTube.
And there's a ton of stuff.
You put in UFOs.
Exactly right. I try to tell people that. So are we the big country that says, shh, it's not real?
Well, I think we were at one time back in the days of Roswell, and we probably had a damn good reason because we had just come out of World War II. We weren't sure what the Russians were doing, especially with their advances in atomic energy and so on. So we were very, very cautious. So this thing happens. I mean, it happened. There's no question. There's hundreds of witnesses now that have told, both military and civilian. So this thing crashes, or two or three of them, and then because they get so excited, they release the information to the public. And then when they realize what they have done, they said, "Oh my God, we made a horrible mistake. We're just handing Russia news. Either it's their craft, something they invented. Let's get this hushed up." So they came up with the balloon story.
And of course, you're talking about Roswell, 1947.
Right. And so then after that, they probably found themselves in a trap. And as the Cold War went on, they kept it secret and made more excuses. And then finally, after the Cold War was over, the Russians said, "No, it wasn't ours." And we said, "Oh, really?" And, then other things happened. And so they just kept it, and they compounded one lie upon the other. Now, back to the Big Daddy effect. Yeah, back in those days, we were probably garnering a tremendous amount of information on ETs and ET craft. But now I really believe it's out of the hands of the U.S. and into the hands of the corporate private industrialists all over the world, and that governments have been totally bypassed and surpassed by the corporate structure.
I got to tell you, everybody talks about the government. I don't think it's a government. I think I'm not sure who it is, but when it comes to the government, they can't even keep their own secrets. Their own lives are messed up, and we know about it all. But I guess, do you really think it's military? Do you think it's You think it's all about military or even getting caught up in lies, and so they can't really
No, it's
backtrack?
not military. Military, all wars are fought for profit of some kind. That goes back to the early days of Caesar and Rome and the Rothschilds and the rest. There's no profit in this for anybody. The profit is in the economics of this planet. We're seated in greed here, and it's the same original greedy people that started at 100 more years ago that are still in control today. If you were in that position, would you want to lose that control? I don't think so. So that's why I say this is migrated into private corporate structure. We want to get the energy out of the oil. We don't care whether we destroy oceans. I shouldn't use the term we. That's not correct. They don't care about.
Right, you're not included in that one.
No,
Well,
it's not they. It's not we at all. The people don't want to destroy the planet or each other.
No.
So I mean, you have to realize that with advanced technology, such as wherever these entities come from, I'm not saying they're from another planet or another dimension or time or whatever, but wherever they come from, it's a much more advanced technology than we have. They want them coming here and supplying us with like the blue energy that on the program V that you wanted to give to the world? Of course not.
Well, let me throw this out at you. Do you think at all that this could be a possibility? I'm just throwing this out because I don't really hear this, and I think it could be a possibility. Is there a possibility that the reason that they haven't come out with it yet is because the ETs themselves have said, don't come out with it until we're ready?
That can be a factor, and I'll tell you why. Because as illustrated in Star Trek, and I have great respect for Gene Roddenberry, even in Star Trek Enterprise, where they were surveilling a planet with a lesser culture, not as advanced as they were, the observer was, they did not want to interfere with their civilization. That was part of the Prime Directive. So, but they did have to observe the planet to know when the time might come. So it was all done in great secrecy, and I think that so that's your question or comment is a good point. They may not want to come directly out and interfere with the planet. However, it's probably one group. I mean, there can't be just one entity that's visiting here. I think that's as preposterous as saying that there's none.
I think you're right.
So others may have other reasons. Others may have made deals with humans. Others may have been here all along. They may be sitting right next to your innocent congressman.
Absolutely true. That might be my producer right next to me. Chris gave me a funny look, and I've never seen a look like that. So.
Check his eyes.
I know. I'm taking him over to you, see if there's anything.
Check my
in
eyes. My eyes. What about Connie?
I don't know. I can't see her eyes.
I got sparkles
I'm not
in
an
them. Exactly. Well,
she probably has beautiful eyes.
Well, we'll go with that then. Well, I don't know. What's great about this whole idea is that we can sit and talk about it, and we're not arguing with each other, we're not yelling with each other, we're not gossiping about other people, and we are looking at a higher concept. I absolutely love these types of conversations, and I love when people have the research to back it up, and you definitely have that, so it's fantastic to be able to talk to you. You are like implant king. And because of that, we can get the information that we can throw closer to the truth and get closer to the truth.
Well, thank you. You are, sitting on top of what we really want to accomplish, and that's a resource to get the information out to the public. And it's got a much better chance of getting out on radio than it does on television, and it's got to be even a better chance yet of getting out on the internet. And the more people that look at it on the internet, the more informed the world gets. And this is true not only about the subject of UFOs, but politics and what's going on in certain geographical areas, Iran and so on. 75% of the population of Iran is less than 35 years of age, and those guys have laptops.
Yeah.
So it's not a country in isolation.
Well, I just can't believe when I hear some of the things I hear from people like you, or what I've researched myself, and I know it's all from legit people that have truly researched it. One of the biggest things in my life that has changed my life in this world is your story that everybody calls Brazil's Roswell, and I can't say the city name. You're going to have to tell me again. Varginha.
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 It's just like the state, our state of Virginia.
But Var.
We just add the A. It's Varginha.
Varginha. I just can never say that, so you're going to always have to back me up on it. But, okay, so he got this story, everybody. This is where Roger went to Brazil. He gets this story where aliens were seen. He zooms over there. They welcome him, where in the States he can be laughed at. And I'm saying that out of love, but out of truth, when people would laugh at you or laugh at me talking about it. So he's over there in Brazil, gets off the plane, totally welcomed, which is something you even found unbelievable and incredible, and you liked it.
Well, I was in such a state of shock when this began, and people began to greet me at the bottom of the stairs going off the plane. I turned around to see who was behind me, because why would these people be there for me? I'm nobody.
Am I in somebody's way of seeing who the guy is behind me?
There must be some kind of a soccer star or something behind me.
Well, the biggest thing about your story is, and if you can, well, just the brief give the brief synopsis of the story, because I want to get to what the doctor told you.
Well, basically, it's this. There's a Roswell situation that happened not that long ago, at least in my time frame. It was January of 1996. NORAD from our country informed the Brazilian Space Agency that a craft was coming down from space, and it would land or crash, and gave them the exact coordinates of where this was going to happen. This happened to be in the state oh gosh, I just forgot the state. It'll come to me. in a small town.
Well, you don't know what you're talking about, do you, Roger? Just go on. Let's just hang
Minas
up now.
Gerais is the state. It's
okay.
A little bit north of central Brazil, and it's a fairly big state. It's an agricultural state, and this is where all the mines are for the precious gems.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's an interesting area, mostly agriculture and so on. And the area that was involved was a city called Varginha, and it's about maybe 130 to maybe 160,000 people now. And these are basically simple folks or are in the farming business.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that this craft came down, and it circled around, and one of the farmers who saw it come down over an empty field watched it as it was trailing smoke, and he said that there was a piece that was missing out of it. Finally, it after flying around for some time, it did impact with the ground, and almost immediately the Brazilian army was there, and they have different branches of the service, just as we do here. The other branch of the military that was involved here was the fire department, and the fire department in Brazil is a military branch, like is our Coast Guard or Air Force or Navy. So between the fire department and the Army, they asked this farmer with his truck to please leave the area. Well, being a good Brazilian, he did. He left right away and pulled around the corner and parked so he could see everything that was going on. And he saw them start the cleanup operation. The heaviest piece was or the largest piece, I should say, was about the size of a Volkswagen bus.
Oh, wow.
And it was quite heavy because they had to bring in a crane to lift it up and put it on the back of a flatbed. And then they did very similar to what they did at Roswell, spread out, arm to arm, hand to hand, and covered the field with metal detectors, gathering up garbage bags of debris and took it.
With a fine tooth comb, so nobody else could go and pick up anything and have
Right.
any evidence.
Then a few hours later is when Mr. E.T. had begun to be seen around town. One was sighted in the mid-afternoon by three young girls around 19, 18 years of age.
And by the way, these didn't look like the grays that Roswell speaks of.
No, these were totally different. Their description was they were brownish in color, quite short, about 4 feet tall. They had a very oily type of brownish skin, big red eyes, and 3 bumps or protuberances on the top of the head. They were hairless and didn't appear to be wearing any kind of clothes.
Roger, this sounds like my date last night. What's going on here? Just kidding.
I don't know. I hope none of my business, but I hope you weren't intimate. Kind of scary.
You get that?
Anyway, for those girls that saw it, they had no idea what this thing was. Now, the 3 girls were lined up, not abreast of each other, but longitudinally, one at a time. The first one that saw this entity kneeling by a wall, because of the bumps and so on, they looked like horns to her, and she thought she'd seen the devil.
Ooh.
So she turned around and screamed and began to run towards home. The second girl who saw it lingered a little bit longer and also thought that she might have seen the devil and followed the first girl. The third girl, by that time, realized there was something there, and she lingered even longer, and as she did, it turned its head and looked at her. And I interviewed the girls, and the last one said that she realized this wasn't an animal, that this was a very intelligent creature. Now, we don't know why she got that impression, but something happened, I think, mentally, so that she did get that impression.
Mm-hmm.
And later that afternoon, they all ran home, by the way, got their grandmother, and the grandmother didn't have a car, so by the time she got the neighbor and drove back there, the entity was gone. But it wasn't many hours after that, on the same location, but just down the street, that 2 military officers, 2 young Brazilian military officers, intelligence officers, in their 20s, were driving, and of course they were looking for this entity at one time, and finally they decided.
They were looking for it?
Well, they were instructed, to look for these entities because
they knew at this point. Right.
Early, I am trying to capsulize this story. It's very difficult.
Please, come on. No, I'm kidding.
There were other episodes that occurred,
right.
during the days involving the Brazilian army and chasing a couple of these into the woods, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right, that was a fantastic
It's all in my
story.
book.
It is. You must get this book, you guys, to get the details. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, Case Book, Alien Implants. It's available through my website, which you can give the folks later.
And, well, you know what? Tell me that website real quick, because I went to it, and it's just all, it said I was forbidden to go to it.
Yeah, it's alienscalpel.com, and it is under destruction.
Oh,
and
is that
reconstruction.
why? Okay, I thought they were on to me or something. I was
No,
already forbidden.
I was going to put a notice up, but now I understand parts of it are back up again. So as soon as the store is back up, just go to the store and you can buy the books or DVDs.
Excellent. And it's a great book, by the way. Very easy read, and you'll get right into it, and you'll stay hooked the whole way.
Yeah, there's a PayPal button there, and if it's all working, if not, just to get a hold of me, my contact number is there, and I'll send a book.
Excellent.
But anyway, these 2 military police officers saw one of these entities trying to cross the street.
He's trying to cross the street. Wow.
Yeah, and it's not a street like we have here. These are small streets with not that much traffic. But they realized that it was injured.
Wow.
So a young 25-year-old military police officer got out of the vehicle. His name was Marco Eli Charese. And he went over to the entity, and the entity didn't move or run or do anything. And he put his arm around this entity, realized that he was injured, took him into this Jeep-like vehicle, and put him on his lap. Now, you have to remember, he had no gloves, no protective garb, no nothing. So he puts this entity on his lap, and they drive to what amounts to a first aid station.
Wow.
And they bring him into the first aid station. Now, first aid station in Brazil doesn't usually even have a doctor. It just has, a very minor medical situation there. So they bring him in, and the personnel there says, "What are you doing? What are you bringing this thing in here for? My God, we can't even treat a human, more or less a non-human.
Exactly.
Get him out of here." So they took him immediately to a hospital in the area called Hospital Regional. And in that hospital, he was escorted through the back door, and there was a military contingent there to meet him. The entity had a fractured leg. An orthopedic surgeon was forced to do a surgery to repair the fracture. And he had a telepathic conversation where the entity downloaded some information to his head.
Wow.
And he was able to tell me a couple of things, and that sort of capsulizes the story, with the aftermath not being so good, because in 24 hours they said that the entity left the hospital in satisfactory medical condition, which is a specific term, taken by the military, put into a truck, and almost immediately taken to another hospital. And not the hospital. The following day, he was out of the back door. A number of witnesses, because there was homes that were facing the back of the hospital. He was seen taken in a casket and put on a truck. So we don't know what exactly happened. I have my theories, but we don't know.
What do you think?
I think that the entity had such great control that I think that it realized that it was never going home, and just gave up the body and went back to where all souls or all your spirit goes, wherever that may be.
Right. And I've heard a lot of things that could back that up, where people, abductees, have said that these things do say to them that we are very spiritual beings, and that we are in vehicles, and that we can just come and go, kind of thing. So it kind of does match with that. When the ET and the surgeon's eyes met, and he was downloaded with information, what's that all about, and what was said? Because that was the most remarkable thing. I know a lot was said, but he only told you just a couple things.
Yeah, he told me only two things. And one was that they felt sorry for human beings. And when he telepathically asked him why, this entity told him that in the first place, wherever it was that they came from, they could either singularly or join with each other and heal their bodies, and it wouldn't be necessary to be in a specialized place or institution with specialized people to do it, such as we have here, and that we could do the same thing, but unfortunately we didn't know how to do it. And the next thing is, he said he felt sorry for human beings because human beings were totally detached from their spiritual self.
And what do you think that means?
Well, I think in the first place, it's true. Just as you said, abductees have said that we have an energy or consciousness or spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it semantically. That's the essence of our living form, but the body is a carcass. And so I thought to myself, well, if they have that control for healing, maybe they also have the control to leave. And there was a rescue operation that we didn't know about until not long ago, when Brazil released a tremendous amount of new information. And part of this was from the Air Force. Now, remember, everything I wrote about in my book was the Brazilian Army, but A.J. Javard heads a research group in Brazil, and they've now released over 2,000 pages of documents. And it was the Air Force that knew about Varginha also, and they said there was a tremendous amount of UFO activity right in that same area after the crash had occurred. So obviously there was some kind of attempt made to rescue these entities.
Well,
and they didn't, they weren't wearing clothes, and it looked like they were totally unprepared to be landing on another planet. That's what it looked like to me. And with the description of the craft smoking and missing a piece, I mean, what does that sound like to you?
Right. You think they just crashed here, or?
Well, I think they were shot down.
I didn't even go there. I was told somebody kind of threw out they believe that these were not ETs that were coming and checking us out all the time. They were just some explorers that happened to be passing by. And I don't know if you've heard that one or not, but I never thought that they were shot down. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if NORAD gave them that pinpoint information, they had to learn that somewhere. And so, I mean, with a piece missing and a trailing smoke, I mean, I don't think that they bumped into the moon or anything on the way down here. They probably were shot down, and that's where they knew the trajectory and where to tell the Brazilians to go meet the craft.
Wow.
So they didn't expect to be here at all. And as to whether they were visitors or on a trade route or passing by, nobody knows. Remember back to Betty and Barney Hill, where she was shown that celestial map, which was finally verified by Marjorie Fish.
Way after she had said it.
Yeah, way after. And it was at when the Gliese star map was finally computerized, that it was documented by the American Astronomical Association that was Zeta Reticuli, the twin sun planet. And anyway, but on that map, she saw dashed lines and perforated lines and straight lines going between celestial bodies, and we were so far off their normal trade route that I don't know what they were doing, sightseeing or whatever, but we weren't even on a trade route.
We're definitely a sight to see, that's for sure.
Sight to see and a bit off the beaten path.
I bet.
Maybe we have a reputation. So.
Yeah. What do you think our reputation is?
Let's go watch that beautiful little blue planet where it's inhabited by beings who shoot each other and destroy the planet, burn it, and do all kinds of very interesting things to each other. Let's go down there for the weekend, and we'll cloak and we'll hide. Nobody will see us. We'll pack a lunch and have a good time with the kids.
We'll take a bottle of wine. We'll have a good time laughing at them, and then we'll zoom on to the next course. Going back to that doctor one more time, I know that he just gave you a little bit of information. What about the rest of the information? Why is he holding it back? And I know in the book he's like scared out of his mind. And what is he afraid of?
Well, when we went back to see him at a later date, he sat there and nervously, right to the nth degree of the word, flipping a pencil back and forth, denied everything that he had said.
Oh.
And he was so nervous that when the interview was finished, we left there and said, let's not bother this guy again before somebody kills him. So we left, and I hope he's okay. But they came down on a lot of people in that area who were talking too much.
Wow, there's so much activity there. Was Virginia? Did I get it?
Remember the state?
Or Virginia?
Add the A and do away with the I.
Virginia.
Right.
All right.
You got it.
The whole world.
By the end of the program, you'll have it measured.
I certainly hope so. Well, that little place that you've been talking about, wasn't it? Was it anywhere near the area that all the lights were shining down from the sky, and people were having radiation problems and they were dying?
No. I was very far away from there. That was in the Amazon. And it was an island area that you're talking about, the Chupa Chupa case, where people were being irradiated, blood was being withdrawn, and the military came in because they thought it was an invasion by Bolivia, and that Bolivia had set up some kind of an outpost in the jungle. They didn't relate it to ETs at all until the military came there, and then they had an open, sighting, and
right.
Some of the military officers were abducted and taken on the craft, and the officer who was in charge later committed suicide.
Oh, okay. Did he really commit it, you think, or was he said to have committed it?
From the witnesses and so on, and the state of his mind and mental health, it's most probably he did commit suicide, because AJ did a lot of investigation on that case.
Right.
And, he said that he was deteriorating all the time because nobody would believe any part of the story.
Right.
He was forced to retire from the military. Became a very sedentary individual, and just things began to deteriorate.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap this up, but right before I do, tell me, how did the 16th implant removal go this past weekend for you?
Well, it was a very, very busy 3 days. It was an interesting case because there was not only the abductee with the implant, but he had two buddies that were with him on this camping trip. He was 9 or 10 years old when he got this thing, and so we were able to bring one of them to California, and the two of them underwent hypnosis, and it's a very interesting case, let us put it that way. We removed another one of these little cantaloupe seed-shaped objects, and we now have about 9 of them. And it's going to be going in for the usual intensive testing, and we'll be reporting on that as it comes in. Also was filmed by Telemundo.
Excellent.
And
excellent.
Jaime Maussan from Mexico.
Great.
So in about a month, there'll be a big television program on this.
Anything you can tell us now that you know? Or are you
Well,
holding off?
other than the description, and the description of the abduction scenario, which is like right out of a classic abduction textbook.
Mm-hmm.
The guy remembers leaving the ground, and but they were young, and we asked if he was afraid, and he said no, and it's fun, and except when he got on the ship, he didn't want to get off, and he didn't like the people because they were ugly.
You say get used to that.
Kids, I want to go home. I don't like these guys. They're ugly. And we got descriptions, and they were the grays.
Wow, you're right. Just like a kid would say. Well,
his under hypnosis, he went back to that age, and he described what went on, and he described the ship and the metal and all the rest of this. It was an excellent textbook abduction case, and we were very lucky to be able to get that in the short time that we had. Usually it takes 2 or 3 hypnotic suggestions to break through the blocks that these people have.
Right. Wow. Well, I'm hoping it's a little easier to jump on board with you next time you go to Turkey, and I want to get sick of seeing UFOs. I want to say that phrase myself.
Okay, well, I will be going again this year, so I will let you know.
Well, that's what this show, which is called High Strangeness, is all about, that when things do occur, we can zoom right over there and be a part of it and broadcast live and talk about it as soon as possible and give really in-depth reports. And that's what we're all about, not just getting to the truth, but, getting to it right away and bringing it to people as people have just experienced it. They just saw it, and their excitement's up, their fear's up, and their wonderment of what the,
Well, let's look at it this way. The audience of your show is very fortunate because they're getting a fantastic piece of information, and it's all true.
I like that. That was perfect. All right. Well, we're going to be talking to David Jacobs in about a couple minutes here. So he had said last time to tell you hello.
Yes, and tell him I wish him nothing but the best, and one of these days maybe he'll be able to come for one of the surgeries.
Oh, I'm sure he would love to. Can you tell me professionally what you think of him and his work?
Oh, I think he's one of the most respected individuals, academics, who's worked with abductions, and he has his theories, and it's okay to theorize, but I don't think anybody is the last word. But he's a very respected individual in this field, and there's so few left. I mean, after the death of John Mack, David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins and Yvonne Smith and John Carpenter are about the only ones left, at least in this country, that are specialists in alien abduction.
You got that right. What about, and just one more thing, is disclosure. When do you think it's going to happen, and how?
I don't think there is going to be any kind of a major number one headline disclosure. I think disclosure is happening as we speak, and it's seeping to the forefront basically through the internet and many other sources. And if people would just wake up, it's more than the ET issue. It's the issue of their country, of their government, what's going on in the world. Wake up, folks, and take a look around, because things are changing, and what we see is not so good. So wake up, and we have time to start steering the ship in a good direction.
It's funny, when you meant to say disclosure, you did say exposure, and I don't know that was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, well, it could have been. It could have been.
Hey, thanks so much. We really appreciate that. And Chris, you have anything to ask it? Okay. I know it's interesting stuff, so thank you. You know what I'll do is I'll just let you know what's going on as the tape. It's going to kind of take a while to put this all together and present this. So when it happens, I'll definitely keep you informed on what's going on.
Okay, and if you can, send me a copy.
Definitely. I appreciate so much what you've done. It's going to help because, I want the credible people. I want the real people, so I really appreciate it, Roger.
Well, thank you for having me on, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Keep my number.
Will do.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.